Imagine living more than 100,000 years ago. There are no villages, no laws, no books, and certainly no science. A small band of ancient humans gathers around a fading fire as darkness swallows the landscape. Every face is familiar. Every person has grown up together, hunted together, and survived together. Yet, despite having no knowledge of DNA or genetics, something remarkable was quietly shaping the future of humanity.
Today, most people know that having children with close relatives greatly increases the risk of inherited genetic disorders. But ancient humans had no microscopes, no medical knowledge, and no way to see the invisible instructions hidden inside every cell of the body. So how did they avoid one of evolution's greatest dangers? Was it simple instinct? Careful observation? Or did nature itself slowly teach humanity a lesson over thousands of generations?
The answer is far more fascinating than many people imagine. Scientists now believe that our ancestors didn't suddenly discover that reproduction within the family was harmful. Instead, countless generations of natural selection quietly favored behaviors that reduced inbreeding. Bands that unknowingly mixed with neighboring groups often produced healthier children, while isolated groups sometimes struggled with sickness, lower fertility, and fewer surviving offspring. Without realizing it, evolution was rewarding one behavior and discouraging another.
But biology may have been only part of the story. Human beings are intensely social creatures, even in the earliest chapters of our history. The relationships formed during childhood, the bonds between families, and the movement of people from one group to another may all have played an unexpected role in preventing close relatives from becoming mates. These invisible social rules existed long before anyone could explain them.
The mystery becomes even deeper when scientists examine ancient skeletons and recover DNA from people who lived tens of thousands of years ago. Hidden inside those fragile bones is evidence that challenges many of our assumptions about prehistoric life, and it suggests that ancient humans may have been far more sophisticated than we once believed. One of the most intriguing clues comes not from ancient bones, but from the human mind itself. Many scientists believe that evolution equipped our ancestors with a subtle psychological mechanism that helped reduce the chances of reproduction between close relatives without anyone consciously understanding why. This idea is known as the Westermarck effect, named after anthropologist Edvard Westermarck. The theory suggests that children who grow up together during their earliest years naturally become less sexually attracted to one another as adults. In other words, familiarity during childhood may quietly switch off romantic attraction. If this mechanism evolved in our distant ancestors, it would have provided a powerful natural defense against inbreeding, long before humans understood genetics.
Modern research offers surprising support for this theory. Studies of Israeli kibbutzim, where unrelated children were raised together from infancy, found that marriages between them were extremely rare. Similar patterns appeared in Taiwan's historical minor marriages, where girls adopted into a future husband's household during childhood often developed little romantic interest in him as adults. While no single study proves the theory on its own, together they suggest that early childhood familiarity strongly influences human attraction.
But ancient humans didn't rely only on psychology. Their way of life also reduced the chances of close relative reproduction. Most hunter-gatherer bands were small, usually numbering only a few dozen people, yet they were rarely completely isolated. Groups met during seasonal migrations, shared resources, exchanged knowledge, and sometimes welcomed new members. These encounters created opportunities for people to find partners beyond their immediate family.
Such exchanges did more than create healthier offspring. They strengthened alliances, reduced conflict between neighboring groups, and allowed ideas, tools, and survival skills to spread across vast landscapes. Every new relationship connected communities that might otherwise have remained strangers. Even so, life was unpredictable. Some groups became trapped by harsh climates, mountains, deserts, or dwindling populations. When there were no neighboring communities to meet, ancient humans sometimes faced choices that would leave lasting marks inside their DNA, marks that scientists are only now beginning to uncover.
Thousands of years after those ancient campfires faded, scientists discovered an extraordinary way to read the past. By extracting tiny fragments of DNA from prehistoric bones and teeth, researchers could reconstruct family relationships, migration patterns, and even signs of inbreeding that had been hidden for tens of thousands of years. The results revealed a complex picture. Not every ancient community successfully avoided reproduction between close relatives. Some small, isolated populations had little choice.
During harsh ice ages, natural disasters, or long periods of isolation, neighboring groups might have disappeared entirely. With only a handful of survivors left, finding an unrelated partner became nearly impossible. Ancient DNA has uncovered evidence of this reality in some Neanderthal populations. Genetic studies suggest that certain groups were so small and isolated that close relative reproduction became more common than it is in healthy modern populations. These communities likely experienced reduced genetic diversity, making them more vulnerable to disease, environmental change, and declining fertility. Scientists believe this may have contributed, along with many other factors, to the long-term struggles faced by some Neanderthal populations.
But the story doesn't end there. Other archaeological discoveries tell a very different tale. Isotope analysis and genetic evidence from prehistoric Homo sapiens communities show that people often moved between groups. In some societies, women left their birth communities to join another group after reaching adulthood. In others, men traveled instead. These movements weren't random. They created fresh genetic connections that strengthened entire populations over generations. The remarkable part is that none of this required an understanding of genes or inherited diseases. Ancient humans simply followed behaviors that proved successful over countless generations. The remarkable part is that none of this required an understanding of genes or inherited diseases. Ancient humans simply followed behaviors that proved successful over countless generations. Communities that formed alliances, welcomed outsiders, and exchanged mates often produced healthier descendants, while isolated groups faced increasing biological challenges. These discoveries reveal that the survival of our species depended on far more than hunting skill or intelligence. It depended on invisible patterns of cooperation that quietly shaped human evolution, and they ultimately laid the foundation for one of humanity's most universal social rules. The history of incest avoidance is not the story of a single discovery. No ancient human woke up one morning and suddenly understood genetics. Instead, it was the result of thousands of generations, shaped by evolution, experience, and social learning. What began as subtle biological tendencies gradually became customs, traditions, and eventually some of the strongest moral rules found across human civilizations. As human societies grew larger, families became part of tribes. Tribes expanded into villages, and villages developed into complex cultures. Along the way, nearly every civilization created rules discouraging or forbidding marriage between close relatives. Although these rules varied from one culture to another, their overall purpose often produced the same result: encouraging people to build families beyond their closest kin. These traditions strengthened alliances, increased cooperation between communities, and without anyone realizing it for most of history, helped preserve genetic diversity. Modern science has finally explained what ancient humans could only experience through generations of survival. Today, we understand DNA, recessive genes, and inherited disorders, confirming many of the long-term consequences of repeated inbreeding.
Yet the remarkable truth is that our ancestors did not need this knowledge for natural selection to work. Behaviors that improved survival quietly spread, while those that reduced the health of future generations became less common over time. Even so, scientists caution against imagining a single universal story. Human history is incredibly diverse. Some isolated populations did experience periods of inbreeding when circumstances left them with few alternatives, while many others regularly exchanged mates with neighboring groups. New discoveries in ancient DNA continue to refine our understanding, revealing that prehistoric societies were often more connected, adaptable, and socially sophisticated than we once believed.
So, how did ancient humans know not to reproduce with their own family? The evidence suggests they didn't know in the scientific sense at all. Instead, evolution, psychology, migration, and culture worked together over countless generations, quietly guiding our species toward healthier ways of living. Long before humans understood the secrets hidden inside DNA, nature had already begun writing one of its most important lessons into the story of humanity itself.